Have you ever felt like your own family was replacing you with something you didn't even ask for? Imagine finding out that, after years of peaceful living, your dad comes home with bombshell news. His girlfriend is pregnant, and without wanting to, you lose your place in the house, in the family. That's what happened to John, a college student who saw his life turned upside down when, at 22, he was forced to leave home. Not by choice, but because the arrival of a baby changed everything. How did he cope with this? How was his relationship with his father affected? You won't believe what happened next. Stay until the end to find out how this story of betrayal, loss, and growth will unfold. John never imagined his life with his father, Mike, could change so drastically. He always got along with both of his parents, but their separation 5 years ago wasn't easy. Since then, John had lived with his mom, but when he entered college, he moved into Mike's house, which was closer to the university. It was a comfortable place, with a room just for him where he could study in peace. Everything seemed fine until one day, Mike walked into the living room with a strange look on his face and dropped a bomb. Sarah's pregnant, John. The news hit like a bucket of cold water. John, stunned, didn't know how to react. His dad, in his middle age, was going to have a baby, and he would be the older brother to someone he didn't even know yet. He watched Sarah, Mike's girlfriend, glow with excitement as if everything was perfect, while John felt completely out of place. It was as if his life up until that point had been a movie, and now he was walking into a scene he didn't want to star in. As Sarah's pregnancy progressed, John began to feel a growing discomfort in the house. He had already noticed how Sarah was becoming a constant presence, but it wasn't until one day when she came home early to cook a surprise dinner for Mike that the conversation took an unexpected turn. While they were in the kitchen, Sarah, with a forced smile, said, "The house is getting small, don't you think? We need to figure out how things will work once the baby arrives." John, who had always considered himself part of his father's life plan, was speechless. What did Sarah mean by that? He tried to understand, but his mind was in turmoil. He was only 22, in the middle of college, not thinking about major changes, but she seemed to expect something from him. Deep down, John felt she was subtly pressuring him to leave the house. How could his room, his sanctuary, be turned into a nursery? He felt a silent pain, a weight on his chest. He was an adult now, but he wasn't ready to be kicked out of his own home. The feeling of being replaced by an unborn baby took over John in an unexpected way. When Mike came to him, with a serious expression, and said, "It's time for you to become more independent and find your own place," it all made sense. John's room would become the baby's room, and Sarah apparently thought he was old enough to fend for himself. The pain of being discarded by his own father, of being excluded, was devastating. John couldn't understand what had happened. He had been part of Mike's life for so long, but it seemed like everything was changing because Sarah wanted more. More space, more comfort, more attention. The idea of leaving home without any emotional support completely blindsided John. He tried to talk to Mike, but his father didn't seem to grasp the magnitude of what was happening. Mike, now so immersed in the idea of late parenthood, couldn't see the pain his son was going through. He didn't understand that, for John, this wasn't just a change of space, it was a blow to their relationship. John was no longer the priority. Sarah's baby was already becoming the center of attention. The open wound was deep, and John felt rejected, displaced, lost. As the days passed and John began packing his things, he couldn't shake the feeling of being abandoned. He looked at the room, at the walls that had embraced him throughout his time with Mike, and it felt like he was being ripped away from something that gave him security. He felt like his father, Mike, was no longer the man he knew. The space he occupied in Mike's life was now being given to Sarah and the baby. Saying goodbye to his home wasn't easy. Conversations with Mike felt hollow, emotionless. His father tried to explain that this was part of the growing up process, that he needed to become independent, but all John heard was a lack of understanding. He was being forced to take a step out, but Mike never bothered to help prepare him for it. All John felt was a growing sense of loneliness. He was leaving, but at the same time, he was leaving behind a part of himself, something he'd never get back. John moved into a small apartment shared with other students, splitting the rent and trying to stay afloat with both work and school. The freedom, which for many would seem like a fresh start, felt like a weight to him. He wasn't prepared for the real world, for the responsibility of supporting himself while continuing his studies. The loneliness of the apartment, now his home, made him feel the loss of family, of a true home, more intensely than he ever imagined. He worked all day in a cafe to pay his bills and tried to study at night for his college exams. But his heart was heavy. He knew something fundamental had broken between him and Mike. Conversations with his father were short, and whenever they tried to talk about what happened, frustration took over John. He felt Mike was distant, not just physically, but emotionally. The bond they had before, the partnership they shared, was lost in the midst of decisions John hadn't chosen. Time passed, and the distance between father and son grew. John moved on with his life, fighting day by day, but his relationship with Mike was never the same. They were no longer the partners they once were. What about you? Have you ever been through something similar, where you felt left behind by your own family? Share your story in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Until next time, remember, the pain of growth can be tough, but it also makes us stronger.